Hello and welcome to a special edition of Hitting the Field. I'm your host, Eric Scott. Alongside with me is Daniel Byrd, and we're breaking down the March Madness bracket for you today. Daniel, we'll start on the South region, right? It's a story with a lot of teams, a lot of experienced coaches. Bill Self, Jay Wright, Kevin Ollie. Who's your dark horse in this region?
My dark horse for the South region, I'm going to go with UConn, and there's really no rhyme or reason to why I'm picking UConn. I just think when you come around March Madness, it's all about who's hot.
Yeah.
And UConn was a 5 seed in the AAC tournament. They ended up winning that tournament. It's all about momentum. I think they're one of the hottest teams. I think they can upset. They're in an 8-9 matchup in their first game. I think they can get through that. And I think that they have enough of a, like I said, a hot streak on to maybe advance into the Sweet 16. I'm not going to say they're a championship team, but I definitely think that they could be the dark horse out the South.
When we look at Villanova, the number 2 seed, the Wildcats, Jay Wright, he hasn't been able to get his team far into the tournament the last couple of years. Is this the year that they push into that Sweet 16 game?
For the Sweet 16, I think so. Right. I think that's definitely a very reasonable goal for this team. I think, of course, they'll be expecting more than that as a 2 seed. They've had a great season, only 4 losses. They did drop the championship game in the Big East for the tournament to Seton Hall. I think they're better than that. But I think Sweet 16, they don't get there at this point. Jay Wright, I'm not going to say he has to go, but this team needs to be an Elite Eight team. Absolutely, yeah.
It's time to win. And then we cannot leave the South region without talking about the Kansas Jayhawks.
No.
And Bill Self, the number 1 seed in the entire tournament, taking on the Ohio Valley champs. Does Kansas make it easy to the Final Four?
I think so. Everyone was saying that Kansas got hosed when these brackets came out. You have a lot of good teams in their region. You have Cal, Maryland, just to name a couple. I think that they have enough talent to get through there. I don't think it's as big a deal, their draw, as people are making it out to be. I think if you want to look at some other 1 seeds, they might have a tougher road than Kansas. And again, Kansas, the number 1 overall seed, you expect them to beat whoever's in front of them.
Now, we look at Maryland and the Terps. They started the season 15-1. Melo Trimble, wonderful player for them, but they dropped off a little bit towards the end of the year. Can this Maryland team challenge Kansas in the top of the division and top of the South, or is it wrapped up?
I don't think so. I actually have them, before they even get to Kansas, losing to Cal in the 4-5 matchup in the second round. So I don't think that they have enough. Melo Trimble and Rashid Suleiman, 2 great players for this Terps team. But aside from that, can you name me anyone else on the team?
Right.
And again, a great start to the season, 15-1. But after that, they kind of fell off a cliff. Did kind of get it back together, get to the final of the Big Ten championship tournament against Michigan State. But I don't think they have enough to get past the Cal team, who I think is very underrated coming out of the Pac-12.
And we move over to the East. And we look at the UNC, the number 1 seed in the East, and they're taking on the 16 FGCU, who won last night. Big game for FGC. Listen, Dunk City a couple years surprised a couple of teams, but now they're taking on a number 1 seed. They're sitting in that 16th spot. Do they have any chance of a huge upset?
I think that this game will be a lot closer than some people are saying, and I've already heard a lot of people, you'll hear a lot of the analysts say that Florida Gulf Coast might be the best 16 seed we've ever seen, and I agree 100% with that. This team showed against Fairleigh Dickinson that they can play. I mean, a 31-point win in a tournament game, you never see that. This team deserves maybe to be a 13 seed. I mean, a 16 seed is unheard of, I think, for the Atlantic Sun champs. I think they'll give UNC a run for their money, but I think UNC obviously has too much talent, and they'll get past Dunk City.
And we talk about the best 16 seed maybe of all time. Let's talk about maybe the best 4th seed of all time, Kentucky. After winning the SEC tournament, they're behind Texas A&M, who seed a 3rd seed. Listen, can this Kentucky team really challenge UNC? I know you're not too high on them, but I believe that they can get all the way to the championship game.
You can't count anyone out this season. And again, Kentucky, Calipari does so well getting talent there. Of course, they can make a deep run. But again, as a 4 seed, that means you're going to run up against a 5 seed, which in Indiana, in their region, and Indiana is no one to sleep on either. So I think that that's going to be a tough game for them. And then again, you have to play UNC. I do think that they're higher. They're better than a 4 seed. So I think they might have gotten a bit of a tough draw there. But maybe Sweet 16 for them, but I think the SEC is a little bit overrated this year. And again, you only have Texas A&M and Kentucky really being the powerhouses this year. Florida was off. Vanderbilt, I know, was in the tournament in the playing game against Wichita State, but they got blown out. So I think Kentucky, maybe the schedule has helped them maybe appear better than what they are. And I think that they might have a tougher road than people think.
Yeah, we talk about the experienced teams in this tournament. We talk about the Tar Heels. We talk about Kentucky, and we talk about Indiana. But we're not even talking about Xavier, the number 2 seed, all the way at the bottom of the bracket. I feel like they've gotten underlooked coming into this tournament. They're a good team. They can challenge in this East region. Listen, does Xavier get to that Final Four spot, or are we looking at North Carolina to sweep it in here?
I have UNC in my Final Four. I see them squeaking past Xavier, but it's a great point. No one is talking about this Xavier ball club, and this is a strong team out of the Big East. Yes, they didn't win the Big East tournament. I know that was Seton Hall, but this team can play. They've proved it all season. You see a lot of teams in the Big East start off hot. Providence, for one, being a great team, 14 one-star, and then they fell off the map. Butler has struggled this year, and they're a tournament team. This Xavier team was consistent all season, and no one's talking about them. I think they will get to the matchup with UNC in the Elite Eight pretty easily, actually. But again, that UNC team, that's a good ball club. I don't know if they have enough to get past there, but an Elite Eight for Xavier, that's pretty good for them, especially they've had their struggles the past few years.
And we look at this region, and we talk about a double-digit seed that could possibly win a game, and challenge another game, and maybe in that second game. And in that round of 32 matchup, even after that first upset, what's a team in this region that can upset another team in that second game?
Man, see, I don't want to be a bummer. I know everyone's talking about how down this year is in terms of the potential across all the top seeds. But I don't see a double-digit upset actually out of the East region. I feel like
it's too experienced.
It's too much. And again, Xavier, a great ball club. UNC, a great ball club. Kentucky.
It doesn't end.
I don't see an upset out of there. I do have a couple. I'm not trying to be completely boring. I have a couple in some of the other regions, but a double-digit seeds trying to get out of the East right now, in what I think might be the toughest region in this tournament. I don't see it happening this year. Sorry to spoil some people's expectations.
We talk about this East region. I'm going to close up here. I got the Mountaineers coming out of the East region. Listen, this team plays a full-court press, which will challenge this Xavier team, challenge UNC. It's a different environment, and we noticed that this West Virginia team, when they're able to defend at a high level, they're able to get in the paint, and then that's when their three ball starts to come down. Listen, I've got the Mountaineers coming out of the East region. I think this is the team as a third seed to look at in this tournament. I think they've been underlooked. We got Texas A&M in the other brackets, and they were the third seed. Everyone's talking about why is Kentucky not higher, or we're sitting West Virginia, a perfect number for them to be in, right below that 1 and 2 seed, to get overlooked, and a team that like I said, plays that full court press and can challenge teams. It's a different environment when you play against that team.
I agree 100% with you. And again, just like Xavier hasn't really been talked about, not a whole lot of people talking about West Virginia this year, and they're led by Devin Williams, of course. And what I like about it, you talk about the full court pressure nonstop. They're just a physical team too. I think they can knock a lot of teams out of their rhythm while they play. And I have them getting to the Sweet 16 against Xavier. And unlike you, I see Xavier winning. I think Xavier is too good of a ball club. Yeah, but I think it's gonna be a great matchup. I love watching West Virginia play. Again, they push the tempo. They keep games interesting. You want to watch West Virginia play, and not a lot of people really catch West Virginia games. I mean, it's Big 12 basketball. It's not a huge draw. But I think that this is another overlooked team. I think there are a lot of overlooked teams in the East region. And I think, unfortunately, only one can get out in the end. And I don't think it's going to be West Virginia this year.
Well, Daniel said it perfectly. In the East region, there's a lot of experienced teams. We don't know who's going to get out. Most likely, he sees UNC in the end. I've got the Mountaineers. We're going to take a quick break, but when we get back, we're going to talk over the West region, Midwest, and wrap up the NCAA March Madness tournament.
Experience, the sea, art, lifestyle, travel. This is Seek to See More.
Welcome back to Hitting the Field. We're breaking down the West region for you now, and we're looking at Oregon. The first time being the number 1 seed. Listen, a lot of pressure on them because everyone believed that Michigan State was going to get this side of the draw and take that number 1 seed. And we look at the bottom. Oklahoma and Buddy Hield, unable to perform in the biggest games this year for them. They're going to be looking as the dark horse at that number 2 seed because this is a team that could challenge for this Final Four. They've proved it all year long. Listen, do you think Oregon's the first number 1 seed that gets knocked off?
You know what? I actually don't. I'm going to pop back to the East real quick.
Yeah.
I think UNC is the first team, number 1 seed, that's going to lose. And just by default, if it were to happen, because like we talked about, Kentucky, Providence beat them a couple of years ago. You have Indiana if they beat Kentucky. There's too many good teams. But going back to Oregon, this is a team I think a lot that got some scrutiny for being a 1 seed. Again, Michigan State probably deserved that 1 seed in my opinion. But if you look at Oregon play, this team scores a ton of points. They're good defensively, and I think they're undervalued because no one's going to stay up 10:30 midnight watching this team play Pac-12 basketball. This team is better than what people give them credit for, and I do have them making it all the way to the Elite Eight, which I think is good for Oregon. I mean, you haven't been around in basketball for a while being relevant. Right. I think it's a good result for them this year, Elite Eight.
And I want to talk about a storyline in this bracket. We look at Shaka Smart taking over Texas his first year. He could potentially face his old VCU side in a Sweet 16 matchup. We won't assume the NCAA did that on purpose.
Right, of course not.
But that could possibly be a matchup. We look in this Sweet 16. But that's where we started. Texas versus UNI. UNI getting out of that game.
I would love to see Shaka Smart have to play VCU again. That's one of the most intriguing potential matchups in this whole tournament. But I don't think it's going to happen. I think UNI is going to get past Texas. We already have seen UNI prove they can play. They beat UNC already this year, one of the number 1 seeds. It was at home, so this will not be at home for UNI. But this is a team, for years now, they've been able to shoot the 3-point ball. They can score. Their defense is above average. And I think they can catch a Texas team who honestly hasn't been that impressive this year. They do have some good wins out of the Big 12, but their resume doesn't pop off the chart you and be like, wow, this is a great team. I think UNI can get past them and ruin that Shaka Smart reunion with VCU for us.
But we talk about Shaka Smart, and he's so used to being this lower seed when he's back at VCU getting ready for these big games. You don't think he has this Texas side at the number 6 seed versus the 11 ready for a game like this?
I don't think it's Shaka Smart. It's going to be his fault that they lose to UNI. I think that UNI will just outplay Texas. Texas, I think later on in games this season, they get tired. I think UNI, being the lower seed, they have nothing to lose. They're going to go out there and give it their all. I know Texas will too, but I think Texas, that little bit of pressure, being a 6 seed, one of the highest seeds we've seen Texas in a while. I mean, this is a pretty good team in the eyes of Texas fans. I think there might be a little more expectations on them than what they deserve. I think UNI squeaks past them. It's going to be close, but I like UNI. It's one of my few upsets, I think.
And one of the most important storylines I want to look at is this Cincinnati team. How do they bounce back after that 4 overtime loss against UConn? Listen, this could really be the start of something for them, something special. After a tough loss, they take on St. Joe's in that 8-9 matchup, and if they win that game, they might face the weakest 1 seed in Oregon. Is there any chance Cincinnati from the American Athletic Conference makes a deep run in this tournament?
I hate to, diss UCF's conference, the AAC, but I think that Oregon's going to get past Cincy. I do have them beating St. Joe's, the Atlantic 10 champion. I think they can squeeze past them. This is a good Cincy ball club. Yeah. They can play. Coach Cronin has them playing great basketball, has all season. Again, you lose to a hot UConn team in the tournament on a .8 game-tying shot to send it to the 4th overtime. This is a great team, but I think that Oregon, again, it's a good team. They're totally deserving of the 1 seed. Yeah. I think it was a pick-em between Michigan State and them. So I think they can get past the 9 seed. I think they're totally capable of that.
And nobody thought we'd be talking about the West region and us take this long to talk about Duke. Listen, Grayson Allen, Ingram, Coach K, there's experience all over. Grayson Allen is expected to lead this team deep into the tournament after the championship last year. Does he have enough firepower? Can he put enough points in this game? This Duke team is vulnerable to these bad losses against these lower seeds. Are we expecting Duke to take care of business?
It's been really amazing this year how up and down of a season Duke has. You expect a Duke ball club to go out there and kind of run the table in the conference. We've seen them have some really bad losses this year in the ACC, and you really don't know what Duke you're going to catch. And honestly, I think they'll make it out the first round. I have them losing, though, to a Baylor team in the 4-5 matchup in this region. Baylor is a physical ball club. They like to play solid defense, and they can also score. But I think the defense could be the biggest part. I think they can get Allen uncomfortable, Ingram same way, and they throw Duke out of their rhythm, a rhythm that they've already had trouble finding this year. I think it's going to be a really long night for Duke, and I don't see them getting past the round of 32 this year.
And we talked about this might be the weakest region in the entire tournament.
Right.
And we talk about you and I getting out from the 6-11 game. Now potentially Texas A&M 3-14 game against Green Bay. It's an interesting matchup. Texas A&M, they love to play in the post, but can they score enough points throughout the game to win the game? Listen, can Green Bay possibly knock off Texas A&M?
This one scares me a little bit. Yeah. Green Bay, again, a solid team, but I think they have too much strength as A&M in the post, like you were saying. I think if they try to resort to making this a 3-point contest or something like that, they're going to let Green Bay stay in this game, and that's dangerous. But I think it's going to be a close game around halftime. I think Texas A&M will wake up and be like, we got to get the ball to our bigs. They'll toss the ball down low, get up a little bit, and they'll cruise through that. I like Texas A&M. Yeah. I see them making it pretty far in this tournament. So I think that they should be able to handle Green Bay. If they struggle against Green Bay, that's going to concern me for the rest of my picks for the rest of the tournament.
And let's move over to the Midwest region. Listen, this is the most intriguing region because all we keep on talking about is Michigan State. And all the college basketball experts keep on saying this is the team that's going to get into the Final Four and possibly win a championship. Listen, I believe the faith in Tom Izzo. It's been since 2000 since they won their last championship game, but they've been there so many times. And this team can always defend. And then you can't forget about Denzel Valentine, one of the best players in college basketball, so versatile. How much do you believe in this Michigan State team?
I believe them quite a bit. Enough to put them, I'm going to spoil a little bit, enough to put them in my championship game against Kansas. I think that this team outside Washington, it's not the strongest team you've ever seen, but it's a talented ball club, and I think they have enough to get through all the way to the Final Four. I think that the one seed in the region, Virginia, I think this is, you want to talk about Oregon being weak, I think Virginia this year is definitely down from what they were last year, and I think that they struggle extremely on offense. And I think even if you look in their second game, the round of 32, I think I have them playing Butler. That's going to be a dogfight for them. It's going to be a very low-scoring game, in my opinion, if Butler gets out of their first-round game. And I think Butler might even pull that upset if I was going to go for a dark horse in this region. So I think Virginia's already going to have some struggles, and by the time they get to Michigan State, they'll be pretty beat up, and I think Michigan State gets through.
Yeah, I love that point you make about the Cavaliers because they're just trying to get out of a region where Michigan State is. This may possibly be the third year in a row. Listen, the Cavaliers have struggled in these big-time tournaments. They play well throughout the year, and it's primarily on the defensive side of the ball and how simple they make the game.
Yeah.
But this Michigan State team, so high intensity, they'll get after you and they'll force you to make turnovers. And listen, you have to perform at the highest level. So we go into this Gonzaga team and we look at this matchup, the 6-11 versus Seton Hall. I think this is the most interesting first-round game we're going to be looking at when we talk about Seton Hall and Gonzaga. Seton Hall just won their tournament.
Biggest champ, yeah.
The biggest champs. And Gonzaga, we know about them. Everybody knows about them. They're so relevant every time we talk about college basketball. Who gets out of that game for you?
I like the Zags. Honestly, if I was on the selection committee, I probably would have flipped these two seeds. I like Gonzaga. I think they are well above an 11 seed in terms of their talent. Kyle Wilcher leads that team. He was a transfer from Kentucky. When he was at Kentucky, he could shoot the three-point ball, and that was about it. Now he can take that ball inside. He can slash the basket. He's added that dynamic to his game, and overall, I like this Gonzaga team. Again, a West Coast team that this year they were down a little bit, had to win their conference championship in the West Coast Conference to probably get into the tournament this year. So a down year. And again, no one watches them out there on the West Coast a whole lot. I like this team. And again, Seton Hall, a great year for them. And again, a big upset of Villanova in the Big East Championship game. But I think they're a little overrated. I think that Gonzaga, they'll handle Seton Hall pretty comfortably, about 10 points.
Let's stay on the West Coast and talk about Utah. That 3-14 matchup against Fresno State. Utah, they play big. Can this team get far into the tournament?
I liked Utah up until they played Oregon. And I saw them go against Oregon, another quality opponent, and they didn't handle it so well.
Right.
And I think they do get past Fresno State, a team who is probably a little underrated as a 14 seed. Got past the San Diego State team in their conference championship game, who was knocking on the door getting into this tournament.
Right.
I think that Fresno State can give Utah a game, but I think Utah advances. But then you got to go up against Gonzaga. Right. And I like the Zags in that game as well. I think Utah doesn't have enough on the offensive end. Even as explosive as they are, I just like what the Zags bring to the table. I think Gonzaga gets through.
Now, I want to talk about the dark horse of this region. Maybe sitting at that 5 seed, you're not as much as a dark horse, but we look at Purdue, and that matchup against that Little Rock, they were expected to get out of that game. They're big in the front court, and all year long, teams have been talking about how hard it is to score against this Purdue team. Listen, in that Virginia matchup, they might not even get to Michigan State because of that game against Purdue.
Yeah.
Purdue, they are your dark horse to get out of this region.
I like Purdue. I think that they've shown it in the Big Ten tournament. They have fight. They have a good defense. Offensively, I think they need to work on it just a little bit, because I think if you get outplayed by a Virginia team or not Virginia team, a Maryland team or Michigan State in the Big Ten, again, not the biggest offensive powerhouses in the world, you got something to work on. But I think again, the Midwest, not the strongest region, probably stronger than the West, but I think that Purdue can make a run into the Sweet 16, possibly the Elite Eight. But again, I think they might just be 1 year away though. This team was struggling last year. Really not a great team whatsoever. A tournament team, yeah, maybe, but not as good as they are this year. And I think they can get even better going into next year. So this year, if you're a Purdue fan, hold back your expectations a little bit. Maybe the dark horse, but just know that you have some good teams in that Midwest region still.
We're going to take a quick break. We wrapped up all the regions for you right now. We're going to come back and talk about the Elite Eight matchups and get all the way to the championship game. Stay with us.
Central Florida is the perfect place to study, earn a degree, and of course, to enjoy everything that Central Florida has to offer.
From theme parks to dinner shows and, of course, the movies, Orlando offers many unique and exciting activities to do. However, we all know that a ticket to any of these attractions can be expensive, especially on a college student budget.
UCF's Student Government Association has the nights covered with the SGA Ticket Center.
Located at the heart of campus inside Student Union, SGA Ticket Center offers tickets at a special discounted price to UCF students, faculty, and staff.
Not only do they have discounted tickets for theme parks, but they also have discounted tickets for other attractions like Blue Man Group, Pirates Dinner Adventure, and Kennedy Space Center.
Save your money and experience all Orlando has to offer.
For more information, you can visit their website.
DC Comics brand new superhero collection. Oh no! Central City is under attack from Captain Cold. Luckily, the Flash is here to stop him. Captain Cold is no match for the Flash. The Green Arrow needs the Flash's help. The evil Deathstroke is trying to take over the city. The Green Arrow and Black Canary are here to stop him. Deathstroke is too strong to beat alone. With teamwork, they can defeat Deathstroke once and for all. Our heroes have saved the city. DC Comics Superhero Collection. Each figure sold separately.
Welcome back to Hitting the Field. We're wrapping up the NCAA March Madness tournament for you, and we'll go straight to the Final Four. We'll look at Kansas versus Oklahoma, and that matchup in the left side of the bracket. Yeah. Who you got coming out of this game, Daniel?
I like Kansas. I like the overall number one seed, and I picked Kansas quite a few years now, over the past 5 years, and they've let me down. But this year, as the number one overall seed, I like what they bring. Devontae Graham, you got Wayne Selden, Perry Ellis. I think they have too much for Oklahoma, a jump shooting team primarily. And I know everyone's talking about Buddy Hield. I know he's a great scorer. But again, is that enough to carry them to the final? They already made it to the Final Four. I don't think they get to the championship game. I think Kansas gets them.
And we look over to the other side of the bracket, UNC versus Michigan State. Who you got coming out of this game?
I like UNC. I do. I think Marcus Page and company can get past a good Michigan State team again, but Denzel Washington, again, kind of in the same shoes as Buddy Hield. Mm-hmm. The star of that team, both kind of Hield and him vying for Player of the Year awards. I think he's going to run out of gas. I don't think that he can win enough games by himself to get Michigan State all the way to that championship game. He'll get them far, and again, he has some nice role players around him, but I think UNC is a talented team. I think they can get out of that Final Four matchup.
And then in Kansas and UNC in the final matchup in the biggest game of the tournament.
It's all it's about. I like the Kansas Jayhawks. I'm going with Kansas. I feel like it's going to be close. UNC matches up well with Kansas pretty much all the way across the floor. They have athleticism, but I think Kansas, I like Devontae Graham, the freshman. I think he's going to be the game changer in this entire championship game and maybe throughout the tournament. If they get production from him, I think it frees Perry Ellis up to take the ball to the basket. Wayne Selden, he's come and go. If they get something out of him, that's just a bonus. Just like in the Big 12 tournament, he performed very well. And I think he helped them get to that championship game. And I think that he can do the same for Kansas now. And I think he gets them to the championship over Michigan State, North Carolina. And I'm going to say 72-68. It's close, but I think Kansas in the end gets the W.
Well, there you have it. Daniel Byrd picks Kansas, the #1 overall seed in the NCAA tournament, to win the March Madness tournament. Thank you for watching Hitting the Field. We'll be back next week with the full episode. Have a great day.